Hi guys, how are you guys doing?
Hey Rachel, how
Good.
are you?
How you doing?
Doing great. So this show is as a child of divorce, I was watching this pilot and was just like, me and my brother have had many a conversation is about how we thought my dad had like this whole other life.
Yeah.
And so it was just like I truly like was like, oh my God, like my brother, I gotta get him to watch it with his daughter. I feel like he'd be like, yeah, this is so true. But for you both, what was kind of the inspiration to telling a story like this that is rooted in so many things, like things that kids go through, but also has this element of they're in a different universe with their dad who is a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when Pat and I first got together to, talk about like, oh, what we wanted to do, it was really important. Actually, we kept talking about like, oh, we kept bringing up things like ET and like Goonies and like movies where they actually used to have like, oh, real talk and like how like we don't see a lot of that these days, and kids going through stuff and like not handling that like a lot of animated shows kind of want to gloss over. We're like, no, we want to have the glaring truth. We want to actually focus on this stuff because that's actually where the relatability comes from. That's what makes you attached to these characters.
Like in ET, where the mom is openly talking about the dad being out of the picture, like skipping town, and you're like, whoa, like this is in a kid's movie. Same thing with Stand By Me, or like a lot of the stuff we even like Everybody Hates Chris or like Bernie
Yep.
Mac show, where it was like those were not typical.
Yep.
Like they were showing stuff that was specific, and that's what made it interesting. And that's what we kind of wanted to inject some of that back into animation.
Yeah, and Everett, you said Goonies, and I was like, yeah, it does have that like the stakes of Goonies where you're like,
Yep.
if they don't succeed, like what's gonna happen? Like in this,
Right.
it's a little different because the stakes are making sure his kids are fine because they're in space. Um, one of like the my favorite parts about this whole pilot is I love Lisa just because she like I understood her as a character. She's like, I'm fine, I'm just gonna make jokes, and then she's like actually really sad. But in crafting these characters that we meet so quickly, and then the stakes go from 0 to 100 within the second half of this pilot, what was kind of the challenge of making these kids so not only relatable, but like you instantly cared about them and understood what they were going through?
I think a big part of that is just like something we had to fight for in the room is like giving it time. A lot of times we're like, oh, we want to rush through, like, oh no, let's get to the exciting stuff as quickly as possible. And I feel like that kind of underserves your audience. It's like if you don't give your audience something to care about, like, hey, take the time and set up, the scene where they're at the table together, seeing mom drop them off. Like you need that time, that setup to really get to know the characters. So it kind of buys you the time later to go on this crazy ride.
Yeah, I would say with Lisa, one of the things too was we wanted the her and dad's tension to be palpable and real, but we also didn't want her to be so rude in a way where you're like, that kid would
Yes.
never get away with saying that. Like we didn't
Mhm.
want her so out of pocket that it was unbelievable. And so that's where it's like you feel the tension, but it's still like it still feels real. The kids aren't like doing stuff so horrible. You're like, oh no, no parent would ever put up with that. Like,
Yeah, and it comes across very well. And for my last question, I have a very important question for you both. Snow Dad, is that Jack Frost? Were you making a Jack Frost reference?
legally, we don't even know what Jack Frost is. I don't know
What's
what you're
that?
talking about.
I was sitting watching this going, Jack Frost? This is Jack Frost. They're explaining the Michael Keaton movie, Jack Frost, minus the snowboarding competition or the snow sledding competition.
I saw that movie in theaters, and it was very sad. I was like, this
Yeah.
is, and he dies at the end.
Landslide is that changed how I viewed Landslide because I was like, no, this is when Michael Keaton dies. This
Yeah.
is Glenn. It was so depressing.
That's Act
Um,
One. Dad's dead.
it was just one of those references. I was like, man, this is such like a 90s kids, like,
Yep.
100%.
like that's Jack Frost. Thank you guys for talking with me today. The show is so cute and fun. And I can't
Awesome.
wait for audiences to get to watch My Dad the Bounty Hunter.
Great talking to you, Rachel.
Yeah. Thank you
Great
so
talking to
much,
you
Rachel.
guys. Of course.